Alright, I went ahead and picked up a Nitrous Express mainline kit. It's a part number ML1000. It's for a 4150 flanged Holley 4-barrel. It says it's good to a 250 shot, but the solenoids are very small and they do have the smaller orifices. So I'm going to doubt that, but I bet it's good to at least 150, 175 with no issues. They are saying it's good to 250 though. It's a really, really basic kit. I actually bought it from Summit Racing. They matched the cheapest price I found online with no problems. So I got it for about $392 shipped with tax and everything. It does come with both solenoids, a nice billet plate, both gaskets, the carb mounting studs, your jets, 2 brackets, your line, all the fittings, all the lines, and the sealer. So, you know, it comes with the basics. It doesn't come with a bottle heater. It doesn't come with a pressure gauge. The brackets are the cheaper strap type. They will absolutely work fine. You won't have any problems with them. I've used them in quite a few cars. But it doesn't come with a blowdown tube. Really anything. I mean, realistically, you'd want to get a window switch, a wide open throttle switch, fuel pressure safety switch, all of that stuff if you want to build a really reliable and safe nitrous kit. Some people do get away with just wiring in a momentary switch and calling it done and running it without a pressure gauge or any of that stuff, and they live forever. In fact, in the instructions, it actually is telling you to tap into the carbureted fuel feed line, which, you know, can cause issues in itself. You know, a lot of times you want to run a separate electric pump just so you're not taking away that instant hit. But I have tuned them on a dyno myself with it teed in, and we ran, you know, with a high volume pump, we ran 100, 150 shot with no problems, and guys have been running them that way for years. It may be what I do with this. I may put an electric pump, but I do have the higher gallon per hour Holley mechanical with good size feed lines and everything like that. So it might be what we do. I'm probably not going to use these studs. I'll probably use some stainless bolts instead, just because these studs aren't really long enough for my billet throttle bracket and everything else I have on there. I'm going to probably add a nice Hurst shifter with 2 momentary buttons on the shifter handle itself, just so I can bring it in and bring it out as I want it. Other than that, you know, a bottle heater and a pressure gauge, and we should be good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and start on that installation, and we'll bring it back after I start taking it off. I mean, the installation itself should be pretty easy. I've installed quite a few nitrous kits over the years, and you know, some of them really complicated, and they had all the safeties and bells and whistles, which is absolutely a great idea, and some of them really basic simples. It all depends on, you know, how far you want to go. Obviously, adding safety switches is a great idea, a better way to go. Can it be done without it? Yep. On this truck, yeah, that's how we're going to go. I mean, the eventual goal is to go EFI in either a supercharger or a turbo for this. But for right now, you know, I'd like to see the truck go into the 10s. So we're probably going to jet it for about a 150 shot, which Nitrous Express, their plate systems and everything, due to the jetting, tend to make more power than like a Zex kit. And there's nothing wrong with Zex kits. I love their perimeter plate. It works really, really well. But they tend to make less power on a chassis dyno than they do. And that's just the way they express their nitrous jetting. They rate their stuff at the flywheel. A lot of them rate it more towards what you should see at the wheels. So, you know, some of the kits will never match horsepower. But like I said, we're going to go ahead and we'll start by taking off the air cleaner and removing the carb, and I'll bring you back once I get that done. So it looks like they're wanting you to use this E6000 adhesive a lot of nitrous companies really would prefer that you don't use a Teflon type thread paste because it can get in the solenoids and clog them. So we'll just put a little bit of sealer on that. And I'm sure you could use any kind of anaerobic sealer. You want to make sure that you go to with these ones that clamp on the line, they're a little ferrule type, compression type fitting. You want to make sure you go to the outside of the fitting. Then snug it down. Same thing with the fuel. Snug it down. Good and snug. We're going to go ahead and do that also, the fuel inlet fitting. Nice thin layer, you don't need a ton. And we're going to go ahead and do that with the nitrous feed line fitting. This fitting feels like it's aluminum, so you don't have to reef on it. Go. And now we install them on the truck. We get the plate installed and the solenoids mounted. That being said, it does say in the directions that you don't need a bracket, that the lines will support them. I'm not a real big fan of that, but remember, this is the bare bones cheapest nitrous kit you can almost find that does anything adjustable. So I get where they're coming from on it, but it's in there. It does fit good. Everything bolts up. The solenoids, bolt down. Everything's clamped down. So soon enough, I'm gonna start running the line from the nitrous bottle to feed the solenoid. I'm thinking about mounting it right to the bedside. I don't want it in the cab. One, there's not a lot of space, and my kids and my wife do ride with me, and two, I just don't like the idea of the bottle being anywhere near me. I've seen the pressure release on them go off, and when it does, I just don't want it to be near me. So I'm thinking right here is a good spot. Yeah, it does kind of leave it open, if you live in a bad neighborhood or leave your vehicle somewhere where people will mess with it, people can do things. I don't think I'm going to have that problem, but for what I'm doing, it'll work fine. Give me plenty of route to, run the line, and easily I could put it up underneath the truck, but then, watching the bottle pressure and getting to it to change it is just a pain. So I think right here, and it does say in the instructions that mounting it vertical is okay. So I think right there will be one of our best shots. Alright, so we got the plate installed, we got the solenoids mounted, we got them clocked the way we want them, all the fittings are tightened down. So we're just going to start finishing up the wiring. And what I like to do is I like to take this I call it snakeskin covering. It's just a expanding plastic covering over the wire. And what I like to do after that is put some marine shrink tube on the ends so it holds it down, it won't fray. Provides really good abrasion resistance, and you know, it looks really good on the engine to me. I've used it a lot in our field, and it holds up good. It stops all the chafing, stops all the vibration. So once you have all your wires ran and everything like that, I like to cut it to length, grab it, and all you have to do is run it down the wire. And I try to hold the end so it doesn't fray too much. This would be a lot easier to do on the other side. Leave yourself a little room so you have wires to strip. And then take a small chunk of marine shrink tube and you slide it over the ends. Just pinch it together a little bit, stuff it through. Pull it down, give yourself a little bit of room. And I do like to leave a little gap at the end so I can see what color the wiring is, just in case I ever have to make a repair. Not that I will, but it just gives you an idea what you're working with. So slide it down a little bit, slide that back. There you go. And then we can heat it. Shrink it down. And then after that, I really like to use weather pack connectors. They work great. It's quick and easy to connect and disconnect everything. So you have a male and you have your female, and then you have your male and female pins. And there's a lot of different crimpers out. This is the one I have. It's a ratcheting type. I have some hand ones I use for oddball crimpers, but this is the one I use for weather pack. Works really good. They're not terribly expensive, and it makes your wiring look a lot more professional. Like on the firewall bulkhead, I use the Canon plug, so you can disconnect and reconnect it. And then let's say you change the engine, or change the combination, or change anything. I don't have to rewire the inside of the cab. I can literally come out here, repin this connection, and change it to EFI or something like that in the future. And that, like I said, is my eventual plan. But I'll bring you guys back after I get that shrunk down, and we'll start crimping on the weather pack connectors. All right, I got it all installed. Everything's plumbed and wired the way it needs to be. I ran the line. Sorry, it's pretty dark. I ran the line up the back side of the engine bay, up the firewall and everything, and I used rev nuts and everything like that, and stainless P-clamps to hold it, so it's ran the whole way around. The fuel line I teed in for the size of the shot I'm running. It's not going to be a problem. Ideally, you'd want to run a separate fuel system just for the nitrous, but talking to NX and everybody else, they say this will work absolutely fine. I do have a much larger capacity. I think it's an Edelbrock or a Holley fuel pump. I can't remember off the top of my head. They're all pretty much identical. I would almost swear they came out of the same factory. The bottle is mounted behind the cab. I'm pretty happy with that. I actually ran it down through the stake pocket and put a grommet around the hole and everything like that. Inside, what I did was I found these. They're called latching switches, and I found them on Amazon actually pretty cheap with the pigtail. There's a guy who makes some billet buttons. He makes some with nice engravings and everything. But this one, you push it on, it lights up. You can wire it normally open, normally closed, whatever you want. There's a bunch of options on it. And then what I did was, like I said, I like to have control of it. So all I have to do is, and it is wired in with a relay, and I actually put all the relays and everything in here with the shifter instead of running them through the dash. Just less wiring to run back and forth. It's got a direct power feed and everything like that, and as soon as you shut it off, it doesn't go. That way there's no momentary bumping it if you're going down a road, especially in something like this where it's simple, you know, no window switches. I've ran them like this quite a bit on my past race cars, and I like it. That's the way I prefer it to be. Ideally, if I didn't have a full manual valve body, it'd be nicer to have it on the steering wheel. But with a full manual valve body, my hand's going to be on the shifter anyway. Like I said, this truck has already ran an 11.1 at 120, so it's jetted right now for 100 shot. That should get this truck into the 10s, barring traction, barring suspension issues or chassis issues. This is a 60-plus-year-old chassis. It has been strengthened. It has had some things done to it, but it still is basically not far removed from a horse and buggy. But all said and done, it should work fine. I can't wait to test it. I'd like to get it on a dyno, but with all the lockdowns and everything like that, it might not be possible for a few months. Most of the shops I know are closed around here, so it might not be something I can accomplish right now. But eventually I will get it on a dyno. I like tuning on the dyno. It's just a lot safer, a lot easier. I can pull plugs when I want to. And like I said, I worked at a speed shop for over 10 years. I ran the engine machining end of it. So for me, I got really used to tuning things on the dyno. But on all, like I said, pretty happy with it for the cost. You're definitely getting a lot of bang for the buck. I would definitely want to add a bottle heater and a pressure gauge. That's something I have ordered. With the shipping delays and everything, I didn't have time to get it to me and in today. And I always like to leave these lines loose. That way you can blow them out when you get the bottle filled. Once again, that's another problem I haven't been able to do yet. So no testing on that as of today, but I'll update soon when I get to.